Hello grade 3s. Today we'll be continuing with problem solving. So last week we looked at some examples, and then at the end of the video we said that we would do some examples this week by ourselves. So you will see that this whole video is pretty much the same as what we did last week, except each sum will be on a slide or on the video. You will need to then pause the video at those points, complete the whole sum as I explain it, and then move on to the next sum and the next sum. There will be 3 sums, and at the end we will go through the answers. So you will need to pause the video, do the sum, listen to the next sum, pause, do the sum, and so on and so forth. Alright, so problem solving in mathematics is basically word sums. So out of every word sum sentence, you can do a calculation. So when we give you those little word sum stories, there is a calculation. You can find a sum in there. So the sum in the sentence may consist of the following calculation tools. In other words, when you read the sentence, you might find one of these things to be able to do the sum. So you might find addition, like a plus sum, subtraction to minus, multiply, where you have to do times, multiplication, divide, where you would do division, doubling, or halving. Sometimes you might have more than one of these in one sum. You could have a plus and a minus, or a times and a half. There's lots of different varieties, but you usually will have at least one of these in each story sum. Word sum calculations consist of the following. So how do we do an actual word sum? So the first part we have is O. Now that is the open number sentence. So this is the sum that you can see in the question. In other words, what is this story or the question telling you to do? And that is where we look for our key words like less and more, double and half, times, each, so that we know what we are supposed to do. So an example would be for, let's pretend we had a story and we found that it was 54 plus 43 equals X. Remember, you may never ever put an answer by O, because that's not what they're asking for yet. We are only now trying to put the words from the story into numbers to make a sum. So we don't have an answer yet. We haven't calculated anything. All we're doing is showing the story as a sum. And that is why X is known as the unknown answer. It's open still. We don't know it yet. So we've just put X there so it's not blank, but there's no answer there. The next step we will have is S. Sometimes it could also be C. So it could be the actual calculation or the sum you will do to get to the answer. Remember, we could do more than one sum or calculation. Sometimes we might have 2 or 3 sums or calculations in order to find the answer. So for this one, there are 2 methods you could use. Because we've now started with vertical addition, you can use that method when you're calculating your answers for story sums. So instead of doing it like we used to horizontally, where we would say 54 plus the 40, get an answer, plus the 3, get an answer, when we're going across, you could now just put the numbers underneath each other and add them from top to bottom, starting at the units vertically. So you would say 4 plus the 3 is 7, 5 plus the 4 is the 9. There's no carryover, so we've got 97. And lastly, we have A, which stands for our answer sentence. In other words, we now have to take all of the sums and calculations we've done. We've got a final answer, but we need to write it in a sentence because they asked us the question in a sentence, like the story. So we need to give our final answer in a sentence. So for example, we could say there are 97 grade 3 learners in Midstream Ridge. So we wouldn't just have 97 anymore. We would explain our answer in a sentence. Alright, so now that we've gone through the revision from last week and we know what all the parts of a story sum are, you can get yourself a piece of paper or a book you've been working in, or your orange homework book. You can use a pencil And if you have your whiteboard or your whiteboard marker with you, you're welcome to use that, because you don't need to send these sums to your teacher or anything. All you need to do is use this as a practice session so that you can continue with your problem solving skills. And the more you do word sums, the better you will become. So as I said, you will do these word sums on your own. So you will then pause the video, complete the whole sum, and then listen to the rest of the video for the next sum, and then pause it and continue until you get to the end where we will go through the answers. Alright, so when you are ready, we can begin. Okay, so our first example says, the library has 286 books. The teacher bought 147 new books for the library. How many books are in the library altogether now? So remember, we look for our keywords, what is important, our numbers, and our word that tells us what we must do. Then, remember, the first thing we need to do is we need to do O, which is our open number sentence. So this is not a sentence, it's actually a sum, and we always have equals X somewhere because we know this is just, we have a sum, we don't have an answer yet. So we say, what is our question? They want to know how many books are in the library altogether now. So altogether is an important word. Then it says, how will the open number sentence look? So you need to look at the keywords in the question and try to figure out what number you're looking for. Is it less or is it more? What is the sum asking us to do? So look for the important numbers, look for the important word, and decide on O. Then you'll need to do the calculation. So look at what you wrote for O and figure out how you are going to calculate. What sum are you going to write out? Remember, you can do the sum vertically, in other words, from top to bottom, because you now know how to do those types of sums, but you can also do it horizontally, whichever way you prefer. And the next part you'll need to do is to give an answer sentence. In other words, it must fit with our question. So if our question was, how many books are in the library altogether now, your answer will have to say, there are books altogether in the library now. Okay, so if you are finished with O, S, and A, you can continue to the next slide, but otherwise you can pause the video here and you can then first finish the sum and then play the video to continue on to the next question. Alright, so our next example is Paul saw 241 stars. Ethan saw 125 stars, and Adam saw 155 stars. How many stars did they see all together? So remember, you need to do O, S, and A. Again, O, remember, is our open number sentence where we're going to write the important keywords and what the sum is asking us to do. So you must look for what numbers you need to use and what word that tells you what you are doing. And then you need to write O. Remember, there must be an equals X because we don't want an answer yet. Then we go to S. When we're working out the sum, we're calculating, so we need to do some form of working out. So you can work vertically again for this one. I know that it seems that there are 3 numbers and we haven't done that, but you do it exactly the same way. All the numbers underneath each other and you work it out that way. If you aren't sure, you can do it horizontally as well. And then the last thing you need to do is you need to write an answer sentence that fits with the question. Remember, you can pause the video, first finish the sum, and then continue to play the video for the next one. Alright, so our last example or our last question that we're going to be doing is, we have 366 plovers in midstream. Now, plovers are a type of bird. I'm sure you've all seen them on the field at school. They're what we know as kivets as well. They're those grey birds with the long legs, and they're very protective over their nests. So we have 366 plovers in midstream. 256 eggs hatch over the Easter weekend. So in other words, we had 366 and now we've got 256 eggs that hatch. So there's now little baby plovers. How many plovers does midstream have altogether now? So again, we need to do O, S, and A. O, remember, has to have an equals X. look at what the question is, what are the important numbers, what sum are we going to do. And then we're going to do S. We need to calculate the sum. We need to figure out how we're going to get the answer by doing some form of working out. And then we need to do A, where we write an answer in a sentence that answers the question of how many plovers does Midstream have all together now. Remember, pause the video, first calculate and write out O, S, and A for yourself on your paper or your whiteboard before we move on. Okay, now we're going to go through our answers. So for the first one that we did, which was about the library books, you can look at your answers that you've written down now and double check if you did the same. I'm going to explain it so that you can see if you got it right, that you understood, or if maybe you made a little mistake, you can see where you went wrong. So we had, for O, we wrote our open number sentence. So we said we had 286 books already, and the teacher bought more books. In other words, we got some, so we would add them on. We got 147 more books equals X. Then we did our sum. To calculate the answer, we just said 286 on top plus 147 underneath. Remember, units under units, tens under tens, hundreds under hundreds. And we said 6 plus 7 is 13. And then 8 plus 1 plus 4 is 13. And 1 plus 2 plus 1 is 4. You would have had your carryovers at the top. So that is where those numbers came from. And then you would say there are 433 books altogether in the library in your answer sentence. Right, so the second question was about the stars that the boys had seen. So we had 3 boys, Paul, Ethan, and Adam. So we have to say, if the question was asking how many did they see all together, we have to say all 3 of the numbers. So we have to put in Paul's, we have to put in Ethan's, and we have to put in Adam's amount that they saw. So for O, you would have had 241 plus 125 plus 155 equals X. Then you would do your sum. Remember I said you could do it vertically, so it's exactly the same. You'd write 241. Underneath that 125, and underneath that 155. And then you would start from the units and you would just add all the numbers in the same house together. So 5 and 5 and 1 gave us 11. 5, 2, 4 and 1 gives us 12. And 1, 2, 1, 1 gives us a 5. So Paul, Ethan and Adam saw 521 stars all together. This is what you would have written for your answer sentence. Okay, now we're going to do our last example or our last question. So this was the one about the plovers in Midstream. So originally we had 366, but some eggs hatched, so we would have had more plovers, so you would have had to plus. So your open number sentence must say 366 plus the 256 that hatched is equal to X. Then we're going to work it out by doing a sum. And if we do it vertically, we would say 366 on top plus 256. And we say 6 plus 6 gives us 12. We carry over the 1. Then we say 6 plus 1 plus 5 gives us 12. We carry over the 1. And 1 plus 3 plus 2 gives us 6. So there are 622 plovers in Midstream now, is your final answer sentence. So if you made any mistakes, go back, try it again, look at the slide again, pause the video, go back, practice, practice, practice. You can also do some sums of your own where you change some of the numbers to figure out if you can see how you should set it up with O, S, and A. And remember, the only way to get better at word sums is to practice, practice, practice.